Alrighty, welcome back everyone, it's Garland here bringing you another Neverwinter video, and today we are going to be diving into the spell rotations for the Mod 11 Hellbringer Fury build. Now first of all, we are going to discuss AoE powers. Hellbringer is mainly built for AoE, however it does have some decent single target DPS, but for right now, let's go through a AoE rotation. First and foremost, we are going to be using the Transcendent Lightning for AoE encounters. However, if you don't want to switch with gold, back and forth between the Lightning and the Vorpal, you can just use the Vorpal throughout the entire time. Worst case scenario, you can use the Lightning all the time. However, just note that the Lightning is not very good for single target encounters. It's mainly for AoE. So if you want to switch between weapon enchantments, it's going to be completely up to you. Now, if we do dive right into the powers, I do like using Eldritch Blast in between Hellish Rebuke, as this will proc the Lightning enchantment since this is a AoE encounter. And then moving on, of course, we do have Hellish Rebuke as our main at will, but like I said, Eldritch Blast is a good secondary. Now our main AoE that's always going to be slotted is going to be Fiery Bolt. It does loads of damage, the cooldown is mediocre, and it will proc the Lightning as well. Now, of course, we're always going to have Pillar of Power slotted. It's definitely 100% AoE. It's based off your power. However, Pillar of Power will not proc the Lightning per tick. It will proc the Lightning on the, first cast of it. However, it will not proc it every tick, which is very unfortunate. Otherwise, Hellbringer would be very overpowered. Now for AoE, you have different options available. Depending on what dungeon I'm doing, I usually change my third encounter power, so it's going to be personal preference on you. Dread Theft does one of the most damaging encounters that we have. However, you do have to cast it and then stay in there, which leaves you vulnerable, and you can't cast anything else while you have Dread Theft active. You have to channel it, basically. But there are dungeons where I will switch to Dread Theft, and if I'm not the only DPS, then of course Dread Theft does have, its group buff capabilities as well. Curse Bite is a valid option, however it's at the bottom of the list as far as AoE goes. It basically just does the damage to all your cursed targets. In a very high-end group pool, like the one zombie phase in Castle Never or something, when you tyrannical threat everything, plus you have your lesser curse and your normal curse out there, Curse Bite's a valid option for like situations like that where it's going to hit every single target. Horror Storm is an AoE, but the AoE damage coming off of it really isn't, it's not good, okay? Horror Storm is still not good, unfortunately. Now, of course, we do have Blades, which is, one of probably the most used, but like I said, it does depend on what dungeon you are doing. You're not going to run around using Blades in FBI, most likely, just because you don't want to get hit in FBI. You're going to get, pretty much one shot for the most part. Same thing with Spell Plague. However, there are some Warlocks out there that will use it, and that's going to be personal preference. You pop your Pillar of Power and then plop your Blades right on top of it, and you are pretty much invulnerable for a very short time. You have the DR coming from Pillar of Power, plus the deflection coming from Blades, which makes you just pretty much invulnerable for a few seconds. That's going to be up to you. It depends on what dungeon you're doing. Like if you're running Epic Temple of the Spiders, Blades is not, a horrible option because all those mobs can be grouped up. You pop your Pillar of Power and then you pop your Blades and pretty much everything's dead at that point. Finally, which is one of my go-tos, is Haydars. Now you're thinking, why are we using Haydars for AoE? Haydars is actually a single target, and I do use it for a single target. However, for AoE, it's not really that bad. The reason is that Haydars, while using the Lightning, as long as you crit on your initial cast of Haydars, the DOT damage will proc the Lightning every tick. which we will go through a rotation and I will show you guys, as long as I can get it to, you know, crit, which we shouldn't have a problem. Arms of Hador is, you know, an AoE, however, it's back to being subpar as far as AoE encounters go on the Hellbringer, but I mean, hey, if you like using arms, be my guest. But for the most part, we're going to be using Pillar of Power, Hador's Grasp, and then Fiery Bolt. So very quickly, let's just hit some things just to show you guys. Let's cache the Hellish, just so we can get our bondings up here. So there goes my companion. Now, as you can see, this is the Hellish Rebuke damage. The lightning is not proccing. Now, if we switch to Eldritch Blast, there you go. Those are lightning orcs, guys. You're going to notice the damage is very mediocre because, you know, I'm just self-buffed right now. You know, the lightning orcs are only doing 3k, but you have to keep in mind with the lightning that it does scale with group buffs. You know, my lightning has been up to almost 300%, so the damage is significant in an AoE situation. But this is one of the reasons why we're using Eldritch Blast, is because it is a at-will that you can spam that will also proc your lightning enchantment. Now, as I said, Pillar of Power will not proc the lightning except on the initial cast, so you saw it right there. The initial cast did proc the lightning, however, the ticks will not proc the lightning. However, Pillar of Power is still, you know, a major part of your DPS, so you should still be using it. Now, if we do switch to Hador's, let's see if this crits. You're going to curse Hador's Grasp, and there it does. So it did crit. Now look at all that damage, guys. That's just from Hador's. That's one cast of Hador's, and it's proccing the lightning every single tick of Hador's. So not only the initial tick, however, every tick will produce AoE damage. And this is one of the reasons I like it. You know, Hador's is a single target encounter, but for whatever reason, the procs, or the ticks rather, of Hador's actually does proc the lightning. So it does produce a lot of AoE damage. But like I said, that's going to be personal preference. You can use Dread Theft, you can use Blades, you can use whatever you want. Like I said, I normally switch based on what you know, dungeon, you know, I'm doing at the time is what I usually base that third encounter off of. And then, of course, you know, the Fiery Bolt, we just, you know, slam that puppy in there and we're good to go. Now, as far as AoE rotation, there isn't really an exact rotation, to be honest, you know. You want to make sure you're cursing everything initially. And if, you know, you have to cast your Tyrannical, if it's a big enough situation, then you'd cast your Tyrannical, and then you just spam your abilities. You know, there is no specific order that we need to go for. You need to make sure you are popping at will, so you get your Flames of Empowerment personal up. As you'll also notice that sometimes when the Hellish Rebuke does crit, it will actually arc as well. So as long as you're critting, if you have 100% crit, then you can just purely use Hellish Rebuke if you so choose. With cast and Eldritch Blast in between, both produce a lot of damage. Like I said, you're not going to see a lot of damage on my screen because the lightning is solely based off group buff encounters, you know? Like, my base lightning is only 68% weapon damage or so. But so when you're moving into a, you know, rotation or something that you want to use, you want to come up with your own rotation, basically. So normally I'll start with a Tyrannical. I'll pop my DC Sigil, I'll run in there, I'll make sure I get my Pillar of Power down, cast your at will 3 times to make sure you get Flames up, cast your Hador's, you can cast a Brood, and then a Fury Bolt, and basically everything should be dead for the most part. In any group situation, even if we're talking FBI, you shouldn't be using multiple rotations at this point in the game. And that's, of course, depending where you're at in the game as well. You know, if you're not melting everything, then you might go through a few rotations of your AoEs, but like when you're just clearing, you know, trash mobs on your daily campaign grind or your daily quests or whatever, you're not really going to be using that many rotations. It's basically just hit a bunch of buttons and do damage. You know, make sure your Pillar of Power is down all the time. Cast Fury or Fiery Bolt in between everything, you know, make sure your at wills are up, cast your Eldritch Blast, and then of course spam your dailies as you want. Now let's back off here. We're going to be talking about single target next. That should wrap it up for the AoE. Like the AoE rotation, there isn't a very set rotation. Like I said, you guys can use any AoE encounters that you really do want. That's going to be completely up to you. So let's swap out the lightning For our Vorpal, you guys should be using a Vorpal because you're going to be doing mainly at will and daily damage as far as single target goes, guys. A lot of Warlocks that are running Hellbringer seem to go with the Dread, and the Dread you will do damage. However, you know, the Vorpal will produce slightly more. So if you have a Dread, you can keep using the Dread. I'm not telling you to change to a Vorpal, but the Vorpal will do more single target DPS over the Dread. It's just not a huge increase that you're really going to notice it. Now, when we're talking about single encounters, I normally will switch out Eldritch Blast for like Hands of Blight or something. Just keep in mind that if you do use Hands of Blight, that you have to be in melee range, which shouldn't be a problem because you need to be in melee range. When you're playing Hellbringer, you need to be in melee range. I can't express that enough. I see so many Warlocks that are out here. The boss will be way over there, and they're popping their Pillar of Power, but they're nowhere near the boss. They are losing so much DPS that it's unbelievable. Your Pillar of Power needs to be cast on top of the boss, and you need to stay there. So hopefully you have an adequate tank that can keep aggro off of you. But I see so many Warlocks just running around, and they'll pop their Pillar of Power. They'll stand in their Pillar of Power, but it's useless. You need to cast that Pillar of Power on top of your target. Otherwise, you know, you're missing out on like 30% DPS. So as far as your encounters, of course we're going to be going to Killing Flames. Killing Flames does so much damage. We're going to keep, obviously, Pillar of Power. You're going to want to spam Brood of Hadar. That's the only daily you want to focus on. You shouldn't be casting Tyrannical Threat on single target encounters. Very rare occasions, like Epic Temple of the Spider, the final boss, you can cast TT on the final boss because there are so many ads that come in. But even in that case, I still pop Brood of Hadar. Brood of Hadar is pretty much the go-to daily these days for the Warlock, and that's, you know, that's where you're going to get all your damage from. You need to have adequate recovery and AP gain so you can chain cast dailies non-stop, guys. Now, as far as encounters, like I said, we're going to run Pillar of Power, Killing Flames, and we are going to keep Hadar's on, as Hadar's is, like I said, a single target machine. You know, it just happens to work for AoE, but this should be used for single target. Now, when we're talking about single target rotation, there is a rotation that you should be using. So when we come to the boss, you're going to want to make sure that you want to curse your target. You want to get your Pillar of Power down. You want to cast your first round of dailies. If you're lucky enough to have a legendary mount, you're going to pop your legendary mount. You're going to spam your Hellish Rebuke 3 times. That way you're proccing your Flames of Empowerment. Then you should be popping your Hadar's Grasp, and then finally ending your rotation with Killing Flames. Killing Flames should always be last, as the HP of the boss goes down, Killing Flames does more damage. So you want to make sure you're popping Killing Flames last, because, you know, if you have other teammates that are also, you know, knocking down the HP of the boss, then you want to make sure you're getting the maximum potential from your Killing Flames. Now, you can come up with your own rotation. Like I said, this is pretty much my boss rotation. Sometimes I'll even cast, you know, Pillar of Power first and then my daily. It depends on the situation, who I'm partied with, and what boss we're actually dealing with. So let's just go through a slow rotation here, like I said, and I'll explain it as I go. So you want to come to the boss. You want to be cursing the boss, even though on the screen my curse isn't coming up because target dummies seem to be glitched every once in a while, but I am cursing. You can see in the debuff right here, it does have the curse, but for whatever reason it's glitching out and you can't actually see the Warlock's curse on it. But if you can see the debuff right there come up, so you want to make sure that you're cursing, okay? You're going to come in here, you're going to cast your Pillar of Power, you're going to cast your daily, you're going to cast your Sigil, there goes your legendary mount if you have one, cast 3 Hellish Rebukes, Hadar's Grasp, Pillar of Power refresh, Killing Flames, daily, and then you're just going to keep spamming, guys. Spamming. Every time Pillar of Power refreshes, make sure you're refreshing it. And as I can say, you're just going to sit here and wallop non-stop until the boss is dead. And basically that's the same rotation over and over and over again. You want to make sure you're reapplying your curse. You know, reapply Hadar's Grasp. Make sure you're recursing after the Hadar's. Pillar Power's back up. cast Killing Flames. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part, but there is certain reasons why you have to use a rotation. You have to make sure you're keeping your Flames of Empowerment stacks up, as well as everything else. So, like I said, just basically figure out your own rotation if you so choose, and go from there. Now, like I said, if you were using Hand of Blight, you know, you'd be sitting here. You can spam Hand of Blight, but you want to make sure you're getting your Hellish Rebuke DOT on there as well. Mainly the Hellbringer damage, you're going to be looking at the yellow numbers. Yeah, you're going to be critting a lot, but look at these yellow numbers, guys. They add up. They're like 8 seconds, or I'm doing damage every second. I know they're not critting, but these are all the DOTs in the background. This is creeping death and everything else. You know, your Hadars is in the background doing DOTs. So yeah, everybody likes seeing those big high crit numbers, you know, oh, Killing Flames crit, bam, boom, you know. But what's going to burn bosses down is that DOT damage, you know, especially from Pillar of Power and Hadars and Creeping Death. It's that background damage is where you're getting a lot of your damage from. And all this damage will be increased, obviously, when you're in, you know, a full buff party. You know, I'm just standing here by myself, so you're not going to see very high damage numbers. But I mean, you guys have seen me play before. You know the potential of the Warlock and the current state of it. You know, but that's going to wrap it up pretty much for the rotation, guys. Like I said, you can come up with your own rotations. Let me know what kind of rotations you use. I change them often, like I said, depending on what dungeon I am currently doing. As far as the weapon enchantment goes, like I did mention, that's going to be up to you, whether you want to switch them out every encounter and waste that much gold, or if you want to strictly just use the lightning, or strictly use the Vorpal. We're basically just sitting here waiting for loadouts at that point, so hopefully in a couple months when we get loadouts, everything will just fall into place and it'll be nice and smooth. But that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the rotation, hopefully you enjoyed the Mod 11 build, which will be in the description. I'll have the link in the description to the build. If you guys have any questions, as always, go ahead and leave a comment. And we'll see you guys in the next video.